Good evening. My name is Linda Barton, and I'm the chair of the League of Women Voters of Fremont County, and I welcome you all this evening. Thank you for joining us. Let's see, we are pleased to host 9 candidate forums during the 2024 primary election season. Forum videos can be viewed on our website at lwv10.org or through County 10's YouTube channel. The League of Women Voters of Fremont County is a nonpartisan grassroots organization that is part of the National and State League of Women Voters. The League believes voters should play a critical role in democracy and encourage informed and active government participation. The League is dedicated to voter education, voter rights, and providing information that helps voters make informed decisions at the polls. The League does not support or endorse any candidate running for office. The League distributes unbiased candidate information through our digital primary election voter guide and general election voter guide, mailed to over 19,000 households in Fremont County. Our Be a Voter guide informs the citizens of Fremont County how to register, request an absentee ballot, and other need-to-know information. Please consider adding your name to our email listserv on the sign-in sheet at our information table. And the Be a Voter flyers are back there if you still need information on how to register or how to place your absentee ballot. Please visit our Facebook page or our website for information about our local elections, our voter guide, and other candidate forums. Tonight's forum is being live streamed by County 10 and will be available online post-forum at County 10, YouTube, and Facebook, and through the League's website. We want to thank our County Clerk, Julie Fries, and the excellent Fremont County Election Office staff for providing guidance and information over the past few months and registering voters. Thank you to Maggie Miller for moderating the forum and County 10 for hosting our forum videos and providing the sound system. Of course, we want to thank the candidates for running for elected office. It is a commitment of time, energy, and emotional and mental strength. We welcome these candidates and wish them well in their campaigns. With that, please welcome our moderator for tonight's forum, Maggie Miller, who will introduce the guidelines and begin tonight's events. Before we go on with Maggie, I just want to make an announcement that Jenny Young cannot make it this evening. She has a bad case of COVID. So we have asked her to provide a statement, a 2-minute statement as the other candidates are getting, and I'd like to read it to you now. Thank you for being here today and showing your dedication to our city. In Ward 1, it's time for a change. Lander has pressing issues that need proactive solutions. Our community deserves leadership that tackles these challenges directly with a commitment to understanding every aspect before taking action, not just listening to the loudest voices. I am asking for your support to bring this type of leadership to Ward 1. Our council, mayor, and staff have done great work to make Lander a wonderful place to live. But we still face challenges that require a problem-solving mindset and difficult, thoughtful discussions. We need to address the city's basic needs in sustainable ways to secure Lander's future. We want the next generation, our children raised here, to have the opportunity to grow, thrive, and start their own families right here in Lander. That must become a priority. I support the 1 cent sales tax for roads and will ensure Ward 1 gets its fair share of road work. I also support the 1/2 sales tax for the airport, ground transportation, and ambulance services, provided that funds for economic development are used for job creation through an impartial and professional process. No more slush funds for those with connections. I will only support reasonable flood mitigation efforts that are cost-effective, non-intrusive, and beneficial to Ward 1. I am cautious about adopting national models and will only support planning and zoning that protects our neighborhood's integrity. Excuse me. I would greatly appreciate your vote this Tuesday to help me advance to the general election in November. I look forward to discussing your concerns and making my case to earn your vote in November. There's so much more to address after the primary election on August 20th. Thank you for considering me as your voice on the Lander City Council. Thank you.
Hello, I am indeed Maggie Miller and the moderator of the forum this evening, and I actually don't get to vote in this election, so I'm relying on all of you. But that doesn't mean that I don't have a community interest here in Lander. I have 2 daughters who both call Lander home. One of them is currently going to medical school, collaboration between the state of Wyoming and the University of Washington School of Medicine, and the other one, lucky girl, is a wrangler for the Allen family. Mary and Jim and Jesse, and she's up in the mountains right now. So we all care about this community. I work as an attorney guardian ad litem for children, and I really believe in democracy, and I believe it is a right, but it's also a responsibility. You need to educate yourselves, we all do. And these candidate forums we've been doing are an opportunity for you to hear from these candidates what their positions are, and there will be an opportunity to submit audience questions. Some cards have been circulated here, and after the 5th question round, volunteers are going to collect those questions and sort through them. You don't know what I'm going to ask yet, so there may be some overlap, and they'll pick through those. We will begin with opening statements. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes. Kirk Schmidt is challenging the sitting member Dan Hahn, and so we'll go ahead and let Kirk go first, and he'll have 2 minutes, and then Dan will have 2 minutes, and then we'll proceed to the questions. There's going to be 12 questions. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond, and we will also have a rebuttal period of 30 seconds or so. We have a little extra time because of the fact that Jenny Young couldn't be here. Sam is sitting next to me, and he's got an orange flag. When 15 seconds remain, he'll hold that up to indicate that time is becoming short. We'd appreciate it if you would honor the time. After round 5, again, we'll get those audience questions. When we do the audience questions, again, we'll have 90 seconds, 1.5 minutes for each of you to respond, and we're going to alternate who gets the question first each time to make it a little more fair. And then at the end, you'll have 1 minute each for a closing statement. I'm quite confident that you're going to hear things you agree with tonight and some things you perhaps disagree with. It would be nice if people withheld comment or applause until the very end. We'd appreciate that. So with that, we'll get started with Kirk Schmidt.
So evidently we share.
Sure.
Good evening. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for holding this forum. I know there's been a lot of controversy lately about the forums, but I worked in public education for 38 years, and during that time, there were many instances where we were answerable to the public, and I never shied away from any of it. So when people are unwilling to come to an open forum and talk about issues that that everybody's facing, I find it interesting why they're running for public office anyway. Thank you all again for coming. In my experience, I was a finance director, so I have a strong financial background. One thing that people don't understand, in Wyoming, there's a Wyoming Municipal Fiscal Procedures Act where cities, counties, school district, community college, all run in the same financial structure. So that's my background. So going from a school district just to a city doesn't mean I don't understand the finances of how city government works because I was in a school district. I also have a lot of background in the construction. The reasons that started me on this journey about 8 months ago were the people that were talking to me about their frustration about the word progress being used negatively. They're saying, why are we talking about doing things in Lander that are progressive? That's a bad thing. Why are we not trying to improve Lander for the generations to come? Lander's been a great community for many, many years. I've only lived here 22 years, and there's been a lot of good things, but there could be a lot more better things. And I'll be looking forward to talking to many of you as the year goes on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Hahn. I moved here from Huntington Beach, California 48 years ago. Married a hometown girl and raised a family here. I left California because of the politics were destroying it. It is coming here quickly. Politics are taking a simple little town we love and making it complicated. There's a fine line between progress and ruining a town forever. People have been moving here because our way of life, and now they want to change our town drastically. Citizens that have lived here all their lives have voiced real concerns to me. This is your town. Do you want Lander to become another Jackson Hole of California? This is serious to me. This is not what I want, and neither do the long-time locals. I've been on city council for 18 years, managed a multi-million-dollar Fremont County company for 17 years before we sold the company, gaining at that time management, engineering, construction, and heavy equipment skills. During my past 15 years, I was employed by WIDOT. I have numerous schools on HR, safety, employee management, highway maintenance management. I've been on the Lander Fire Department for 39 years, and this has definitely taught me how to use teamwork under extreme conditions. I have business skills, drive, and now I'm retired. Lander, I'm listening to you and your concerns. Thank you very much.
So the first question goes to Kirk Schmidt, and it'll be an extension of your opening statement, I believe. If elected to the city council, what qualifications of leadership will you bring to the job?
Well, as I explained, my financial background, the construction background, and working with boards and commissions and being appointed to those over my time, and had to work. I was on the school facility commission, which is statewide construction of schools, so you have to learn to understand everybody's position, not just the ones you're dealing with, but you have to look down the road how your decision will affect everybody else. The other thing that is looming large over everybody is at the state legislature. In my 38 years, I was heavily involved in working with the legislature and lobbying with those people. And if you look at the last 3 years with the legislative cycle, there's been a serious attempt at erosion against local control. The legislature has made attempts to take away the authority of city councils, of county commissioners, of school boards, of community colleges. That's going to take away your voice to the city council. Now, that's not good. And I know that system. I've worked with that system for my entire career. And that's one of the main strengths that's going to help us move successfully.
Thank you. Dan, if you could tell us, what qualifications and leadership will you bring to the job?
Well, I'll bring the same qualifications that I've been bringing for the last 18 years. Some people don't agree with what I have to say, but I listen to all the people and I take it all of their concerns and then I voice it back to the city. And so I will be doing exactly what I'm doing right now.
Thank you, and that question doesn't seem to lend itself to a rebuttal, so let's move on to question 2. For you, Dan Hahn, can you hear me okay?
Try.
Okay. City council members are responsible for guiding Lander's strategic plan priorities. These priorities are organized into 3 levels. The first priority level includes implementation of the water master plan, safe routes to school, code enforcement, building maintenance, memory care, assisted living, flood mitigation, attainable housing. The second priority level includes senior center maintenance, LEADA partnership, and economic development. And the third priority level includes air service, recreation programming, ambulance, new parks development, land acquisition for economic development, greenhouse gas goals, and facility fiber interconnectivity. This is a doozy. What do you see as the main priorities at each level? I read the questionnaire. I'm sorry.
We'll go.
Should we go one by one?
Well, on the bottom level, the Riverton Airport would be my main goal, trying to keep that going. On the second level,
I can refresh your memory if you want to hear it again.
if you would please.
Senior center maintenance, LEADA partnership, and economic development.
Did you say, when you said maintenance, you're talking about city maintenance?
The maintenance for the senior center.
Maintenance of the, no, there we go.
That's what you're reading out of, I assume.
I'm gonna give you the sheet.
Yes,
Yeah.
maintenance of the senior center.
No, then you can see all these other questions.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Maintenance of the senior center. And in the top, I've always been for water, anything to do with water, but we're sitting pretty good on water right now. So putting that one away, I would go with safe routes to schools would be my number 1.
Okay, so safe routes to schools, the airport, and what was the last? I'm sorry.
And the senior center.
And the senior center.
Yes.
Okay. Coach Schmidt, what do you think?
I'll take my crib notes back. Can you hear us? I don't know how close you're supposed to be holding the microphone. The first priorities, it's been interesting talking to the community members, and it seems weird given what's happened in the last 6 months around here, but one of the biggest issues that people are talking to me about is code enforcement. I mean, that's a high priority on their list. To me, okay, I'm born and raised in Wyoming, and with the history of Wyoming, there's two things people have been shot about in Wyoming: cattle and water. So you better start paying attention to the long-term health of the land or water system, because nobody cares about water until you don't have it. I mean, and that's a huge. Obviously, the road system, the replacement, that's in place and needs to keep moving forward. The second priority for those of us senior citizens, we think that our communities are growing older. That's just a fact of life, and that is huge in this community. The third priority, to me, for the struggles that we've had in Fremont County, ambulance service is huge. I mean, everybody understands the problems that have been faced with the ambulance service. Okay, you never want to be able to use it, but when it's not there, it's not going to do you any good.
Indeed. Next question to you, Kirk. Given Lander's diversity of people and backgrounds, how will you represent and communicate with people who do not necessarily share your values?
Here's what's interesting that's been kind of lost on elected officials in my mind in Wyoming. It's not about my values. It's about the values of the people that I represent. There are too many times where elected officials are pushing their values off onto everybody else. That's not the way democracy works. I mean, in the city council, I think, has been pretty good about that. The legislature's been horrible about that. But the city council is the voice for everybody. Okay, Dan represents Ward 1, but Dan represents everybody in town. Everybody talks to him. And that is, I mean, we're just split up in wards because Lander's never chosen to elect everybody at large, which to me would make more sense than having wards, because then everybody is very accountable to everybody. But the biggest thing that we need to remember as elected officials is it isn't about us. I mean, there's a lot of things I disagree with, but you know what? When there's 400 people that want one thing, that's what's important, not me.
Okay, thank you. Dan, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be paralleling this. You're exactly right. When you're on council, it doesn't make any difference whether you're in Ward 1 or Ward 2 or what ward you're in. People that feel comfortable talking to you will come up and talk to you. And I think that's where people start getting perceptions on actually how, the way you think, like people, and I tell the council all the time, I bring things to council because people talk to me. I bring what they want to the council, and that's what I do. I go and they tell me things, whatever they want to tell me, I bring it to the council. And I don't know how many times I've said it in the years I've been on. This is not me, this is the people that are talking to me. Now, if people are not comfortable with talking to you, then you may be getting just part of what the community wants. But as a council person, I don't think that's your fault. You bring what the people, the citizens want to the table, and then it's voted on. And that's why we have a lot of different types of people on the council. So
You're looking like you want to rebuttal.
I want to clarify something, okay? You have to be careful. I sat and watched for too many years 3 or 4 people come to a school board meeting and change policy. Okay? I will talk to individual people. That's fine. But don't expect one person or 2 people to influence my vote on the city council. That's not what it's about, and that's not fair to the rest of the people in the community.
Thank you. I have a question for County 10. Do you need Dan Hahn to hold the mic still, or can it be heard?
We're okay, but that would be fine too. Yeah.
Try to hold this.
You're waving it around like you're leading music
Just-
there.
Because Dan, this next question's for you. Dan, this question's for you, and I just want you to hold the mic close to your face. And I'm interested in this question. The city has been exploring various administrative structural models that affect the mayor and assistant mayor. One proposal changes this current structure from a quote-unquote strong mayor who oversees a portfolio of day-to-day operations to a quote-unquote city manager who would oversee the priorities identified by the elected mayor and council. In this scenario, the city manager would have the skills to supervise large-scale projects, and the mayor would have fewer day-to-day responsibilities. Do you think that a strong mayor or a city manager system is a better fit for Lander?
my personal opinion is a strong mayor. If they choose to go to this administrative, I see the administration of the city running the whole town. Where the mayor, excuse me, where the mayor can rein things in if he thinks is needed. And to tell you the truth, this year in all these years, I've never heard the term strong mayor. That's just something that come up. But having a mayor as a figurehead that maybe he can vote if they choose that, or he doesn't vote, which I've heard happens. Why have a mayor? I think that it'd be like having a company, like running a company, but the owner has no say so. And I totally disagree with that. I think that that would be a bad fit here.
What do you think, Kirk?
Well, I've lived in both. When I lived in Rollins, I was there for 17 years. They ran a city manager form of government. In 17 years, they had 6 city managers. Tell me what's good about that system. I mean, that creates more problems than it can. I mean, you can't operate in a vacuum. Okay? A mayor form of government, there's different ways to look at it. You have a mayor is the CEO of the city. And they delegate and they make sure they hire strong department leaders, and that's how the city gets run. The mayor doesn't run the city. The mayor is a political figurehead. And I always had to laugh at conversations about school superintendents. There's a heck of a difference between a school superintendent in a Trona County school district in Casper and one in Lander. I mean, you just look by the sheer volume of it. But a good mayor that has a strong background in management can take care of the business. The city manager, like I said, I don't think that's a good form when you're changing that much. Think about that, 6 and 17 years. That's a lot of turmoil. In a small community, Rollins isn't that small, isn't that big of a community in Wyoming.
Okay, this question goes to you, Kirk. In order to protect citizens and city infrastructure, determining a flood mitigation plan is a first-level priority in the city's strategic plan. The city continues to look for grant funding to enact solutions to reduce flooding risks and increase the protection of citizens from flood disasters. In your opinion, what should be the priorities of a comprehensive flood mitigation plan?
Well, I guess protect all the houses in the community against the flood. I mean, however that's done. I mean, it makes your head hurt when you start reading and going through all the scenarios that can happen. What is the perfect solution? Okay, you do one and it doesn't work, then what happens? I mean, you got to come up with a plan and figure and stay the course. Quit changing, quit doing different things. Pick one, decide what it's going to be, and commit to it. But you have to use science to make sure that that's going to work. And, I mean, I've sat through some of the meetings and I'm scratching my head thinking, well, can't hear the people that are trained to understand the flow of water in that kind of a situation. It's all emotional more than it is logical. Okay, I'm an accountant. Okay, retentive. Give me facts. Don't give me emotion. There has to be a plan and be done with it. I mean, you can't keep working at it.
The priorities of a comprehensive flood mitigation
I
plan.
got this.
Yeah.
For one thing, I totally agree with you. But to add to that, I'm not a fan of the flood wall. There's too many different things there's too many variables with a flood. There's too many different things that can happen You could have the river, you could have ditches, there's so many variables that I like temporary barriers. You bring them in, you put them where you need them, and you save money. It saves you a lot of money. And we've done it, we've done it a couple times now. And if people really know the history of way back when, there were a lot of different things that came into play. Some of it was man-made. The other thing is you just never know how much water is going to be coming down. But the one thing about the wall, you're talking about possible eminent domain, which is taking property that people don't want to give up. I don't think it's necessary. I think we can do everything that we need to do to save the town. And I talked to a lot of people that go all the way back to the 60s and beyond that are happy with the temporary wall. So in my mind, that's the way to go, and the cheapest. We can put that money on roads.
You keep that, Mike. It's your turn. So Dan, economic diversification is a level 2 priority in the strategic plan. Do you believe that economic diversity is a city priority? Why or why not? And if so, how should the city encourage economic diversification?
Well, I encourage it. I just think it's not as easy as everybody thinks. Business is tough. Business is tough. We were in business for 30 years, and it's not easy. I encourage it, but you have to be very careful in what you do. I've seen way too many businesses come and go because it is tough, and so that's one of my concerns. You have to have something that's going to fit. If you don't, you go away, and that's a bad deal. I've seen a lot of people lose everything over that. So.
Economic development, based on what I've talked to people and what I've read, there needs to be a very clear picture of what the definition of economic development is. I think right now, the function that it's under is too broad-based. People don't understand. Economic development isn't giving me, as a business competitor of Dan's, isn't giving me money to compete against him. That's not economic development. Job creation, job retention, new businesses that aren't competing against existing businesses is economic development. And right now, I think that there are too many people that don't understand, okay, what do we need to do to grow the economy in Lambert? Giving businesses, one business money that another one doesn't, that doesn't do anything. The example I gave to somebody when we were talking about it, I said, okay, let's say Advanced Auto Parts wants to come into Lambert. Brand new business, they're going to create jobs, but what are they going to do? They're creating a new market because there's already 3 auto parts stores here, so there's a market. You're probably going to be stealing employees from those people, so you're not expanding that, and you're probably going to put somebody else out of business. That's not economic development.
Okay, did you want to add to that, Dan?
I was going to add a little bit to that. But
You get 30 seconds.
I think you pretty well covered that. But yes, the problem is, the big problem, and the community definitely sees this, is the definition of economic development is a mile away, when it used to be just a little bit. You know, it used to be smaller. Most people figured that it was
We're gonna move on, and actually, if you have an audience question you'd like to submit, hold it up, and a volunteer will come and collect it from you.
We're trying to figure out who should keep it.
Dan started that question, so you get it. And I think people who didn't come are missing out. This is really interesting. So, Kirk, as you know, the city of Lander is divided into 3 wards. There are elected council members who represent each ward. There are county residents who are part of the fabric of Lander. They work, play, shop, and conduct business in the town of Lander. All of these citizens are affected by the decisions of the city and the council. As a council member, how will you represent citizens who are not represented within the ward structure?
You mean people that live outside the city limits of Lander?
Yeah, maybe they live outside and they actually have a business in town. You know, there's all kinds of people who do business or own businesses in town, but don't necessarily live within the city limits and then don't get to vote.
Well, to me, business owners have a voice in the city. They have a vested interest, they're here, they're providing services. They absolutely have a voice. You have to understand that the people who are running the business in Lander don't necessarily own the business, because there are a lot of businesses in Lander that are owned by someone who lives somewhere else, but that doesn't mean that the manager isn't as much of a voice. No, I think it's very important for the city council to listen to all the businesses in town. They should have a voice.
Well, just expanding a little bit, what about people who don't own a business but do business here all the time, and their kids go to school here, and they go to the city park, and
I'll give you a weird answer to that, because I used to get it all the time, because Little League Baseball wanted to drive school buses, and I go, well, it's not a school program. Well, but they're school kids. Okay, just because you come to town to shop doesn't mean you're a citizen and have a vested interest in Lander. You could, the business owners are one thing, but when you start involving the people who come to town to shop, where would that end? I mean, you got people that live in Jeffrey City, you have people in Riverton. Should they come and have an influence on what goes on in Lander? I don't think so.
what do you think, Dan? You can focus on the business on the part if you like.
I definitely agree with that. I think that, I think the people that have, most of the people that have businesses in town, a lot of them own the businesses, and to tell you the truth, I really think that it would be a great thing if they could vote. But listening to the people that have businesses in town, and I listen to the people that live out of town. They have concerns about the town too, and to tell you the truth, that as far as I'm concerned, that is a voice. You know, they're in the community. They may not be in town, but they're here. They're among us. So I like to hear what they have to say.
Well, thank you. I think I live 1,000 feet from the city limits. So, Dan, do you support the Lander Investment for Tomorrow program, referred to as LIFT? Why or why not? And if you do support LIFT, would you propose any changes?
Say that one more time.
The Lander Investment for Tomorrow program. It's called LIFT.
I don't believe I've heard of that.
We have somebody back here explaining this. You talked about the LIFT program before the thing with me.
Okay. I do. I think the only disappointing thing I've had with LIFT is other entities have made changes on some of the way they do business with like multiple awards and setting up some kind of structure where if you help a business that if they turn around and sell that business that they're going to pay the money back. There's certain things that I think some accountability that should be involved As far as the program goes and what they've been doing, I think it's fine. It's just that from the beginning, and we're almost, 4 years, those were my concerns, and there hasn't been a change. And so, besides that, I mean, I think the program is good. And the other thing that I was trying to explain is the definition of economic development is really, really wide, and a lot of people don't understand it. It sure would be nice to get all of the qualifications for economic development in one pile so everybody sees what they have.
I think it gets back to what I said earlier about the definition of economic development. And I haven't talked to a lot of people that even understand what the LIFT program is. So that tells me, and I think it's very difficult to have a PR plan to explain to people what's available and everything. But it gets back to, I think there needs to be a very focused definition of what economic development is, and everybody needs to come into it. I don't think LIFT is that focused based on what I know and what I've seen.
If it were more focused, would it be something that you would support?
Sure, if it meets my definition of economic development, absolutely.
So it sounds like you and Dan are sort of in agreement, more accountability.
There needs to be a definition. With the definition, how can you hold people accountable when there's not a clear definition of what's expected? If there's a clear definition, then it's very easy to have accountability.
So Kirk, next question goes to you. How do you see Ward 1 adapting to meet housing needs?
The housing, and I've had a lot of conversations about that, and my first question about the housing needs is, does government want to get into the housing market? That's the big question. Because if you're going to talk about workforce housing, keeping housing prices controlled, that's what you're talking about. And the biggest question there is, all right, is it okay for government to be competing against the private sector? That's the biggest question that needs to be answered. And then, okay, I've not seen any surveys on what available housing is out there, what's rental. I've been walking around Lander, and I am just shocked at the number of vacant properties, absentee landlords, that, and it gets back to the code enforcement, getting after people to clean things up to make housing affordable. But the first thing that needs to be answered is, okay, if you want to be able to control rents, does government want to get into that? And that's a tough nut to crack, because you are then all of a sudden taking government and competing against the private sector.
So I promise you'll get more time, and so will Dan, because I'm sort of enlarging this. But I mean, it goes beyond just whether or not there's price controls. There's also zoning that impacts housing, and whether people are expanding and building more apartments. Do you have any ideas along those lines beyond just price control?
Okay, there is land available that's owned by the state, by the school district, that's available to develop. But then you run into, okay, how do you get the infrastructure there? What are you going to use to do that? They aren't making any more land. So there's only X number of acres of land available in the city limits. So then you start talking about expanding the city limits and getting into an obligation for future councils to take care of all that infrastructure when we're struggling to try and get this infrastructure.
It's a broad question, Dan. Do you want me to repeat this? Okay.
This has been huge. It's been huge for years. This is a tough one for me on two different angles. We have changed the zoning. We have right now, if you live on a corner lot, you have a big lot, you can put maybe 3 houses on your lot. We've got that. If you have 50, if you're on a corner lot, and you have 50 by 50 spot, you can put a house there. Right over here, there's 3 or 4 houses on one lot. It's what they call densification. I came from a place that was like that. Thousands of acres got ate up, and then when you're completely done, with this, you're just packed. You're just packed in this nice little spot. Now, right now, what we have is we just have it on the corners. But the state, they just adopted the 2023 Harvard University housing. Yeah, 2023 Harvard University, basically their housing study. So we have a huge city that's coming to Wyoming, and it's on Lander's doorstep. We haven't done anything with it, but I'm on the fire department, and I have a lot of concerns with, even when you have 3-4 houses on it, it's if you have a fire, it's difficult. But what's coming, or what could come, is if they pass this, we can have 10-foot or 5-foot offsets if there's no utilities. We can put houses 10 feet apart, and we can put them, if they go with the plan, 40 to 45 feet tall. It's row housing, people. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C. or any place like that, that's what we have is we have big city things that are landing in a little town. And I tell you what, if you take one of these fields and you put row house in there, you're darn right, you're gonna pack people in here. And that's what they want. And I'm just one person. I know the end result. If you take all the big city stuff and you build like they want, 30 years from now, this town is gonna be like packed like sardines. And it's not gonna change the cost of housing, and that's what they think. They think it's gonna change it.
The thing that surprised me the most is there has never been, in my mind, and I could be wrong, a comprehensive needs assessment. I hear there's a housing shortage, we need this, we need this. What's out there now? Never seen it. I have no idea what's available, what's available for building spaces, what's available to rent, those kinds of things. I think before you start going down the road saying that you have a huge problem, you need to identify, okay, what's out there?
Okay, so audience questions touch on this topic, and so we're just going to briefly continue this conversation. You obviously don't want the big city being crammed into Lander. These questions are, how do you feel about rezoning generally? What are the pros and cons of the proposed zoning changes that increase density and decrease setbacks? So if you wanted to add anything more about that, because I only have anecdotal information, but for instance, Lander Valley Animal Hospital, they were hiring a veterinarian, and they signed a contract, and then they ended up not coming because they couldn't find a house. So it actually is an issue. I don't know, I don't have the facts about how much. But if it is indeed an issue, would you support any kind of rezoning? Would you, any kind of change in the setbacks? Or should we leave it as it is right now?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think it's going on right now. I mean, there's new houses being installed right now, and it looks like the setbacks are a lot closer than we've had. I think it's here. I don't really care for it, but you got to remember, I look at things on the firefighting situation. We've got a fire department, aging fire department. We're volunteer. I'm 67 years old and still on the fire department. I've been on the 3 biggest fires, and I look at a lot of things for the possibility of fighting fires. And so it's just something people really have to think about it. When you start packing houses in, and if you have, especially when if you're 10 feet apart, and we had a big fire on 10th Street last year. If you're 10 feet apart, you're going to have 2 houses on fire, then maybe 3 houses on fire. And if you have wind, you know, you may have, you know, a block on fire. And so one of the things you have to look at, it's not just trying to put people into town. And that, I think the people are, they're thinking that way. They're just at tunnel vision and thinking, okay, we need to put more house in here. Okay, but you have to be able to deal with things if things go south. We have a lot of wind. If you have a fire, it could get ugly.
Okay. Any thoughts on rezoning before we move on?
If you're gonna rezone, come up with a plan. Tell me why you're rezoning. Okay, if it's to accomplish jamming more people into a lot, I don't know, that's a great idea. I mean, Dan talked about fire, but you talk about all safety. The police have to be able to get in and out. They're ambulance, medical people. Everybody has to be able to access those kinds of things. If you're gonna rezone, tell people why you're doing it and show how it's going to make an improvement. If you're rezoning to just rezone for whatever reason, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, give everybody a reason. Say, okay, give people concrete examples of in town, show these blocks, if this is rezoned, this would be available. I don't know that I've ever seen that, but don't just rezone to rezone.
So you want more information. Okay. So Dan, this question goes to you. And I smiled when I realized it was yours. You'll smile too. Do you support external funding sources such as federal and state grants for infrastructure projects? Why or why not? If you do not support external funding sources, what should replace those funding sources?
I definitely support. But the biggest thing with me is grants are not free money. That's taxpayers' money, and I want it to be spent correctly. If we're spending taxpayers' money, grants, if we're doing things correctly, I totally support them. If it's out in left field, no. But solid infrastructure, yes, totally.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I support grants. I operated in K-12 school district for 38 years, and there were a lot of grants that provided a lot of services. The thing you have to understand about federal grants is where they come from. Okay, and it's not free money because you have very strict guidelines which you can use it for. 51% of the federal mineral royalties generated by the extractive industry in Wyoming on federal land, 51% of it goes to Washington, goes to the federal government. Okay, if the city writes a $10 million federal grant, that $10 million is Wyoming taxes coming back to Wyoming. That's what that is. I mean, so we're spending our own money on, and you have to follow the guidelines. And I've seen too many government entities that decided they were going to pay fast and loose because they thought they could, and ended up paying the money back. I mean, and this gets back to one of your earlier questions. It's not whether I believe in grants. It's that the citizens of Lander believe that the city should be going and getting grants. I could hate it. But if the population of Lander wants that, rather than having their water rates go up or their property taxes go up, if that's going to keep that down, that's what's important, is the voters, not me personally.
Okay, you keep the mic. Kirk, should the city council increase the awareness and understanding of city work among the general public? If so, how?
Good luck. Good luck. Because I can tell you right now, pick a government entity that can put out enough PR or enough information. I mean, I'd be shocked if I could go find 200 people who regularly go to the city's website and look at city council meetings or stuff like that. You can do whatever you want. I used to, and those of you who have lived in Lander forever can appreciate this. When I moved to town, okay, I knew Dan Hudson because he was a colleague of mine. He was the chairman of the school board here. He hated Bill Sniffen. hated him because of the publicity in the Atlanta Journal. Bill Sniffen and I sat in Rotary, and we used to laugh because I told Bill, I said, I've been in this game too long. Bad publicity about schools sells newspapers. Good publicity doesn't sell anything. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, if I could bottle it and sell it, I'd be a millionaire. Because you cannot put out enough great information about what you're doing. You could put a list of contractors out there, you could buy an ad and say this. People, oh yeah, and? So,
Is it hopeless, Dan? Or should
Yes.
the city do something?
Yes, I do agree. I do agree that the city should be communicating with the citizens. Unfortunately, safety is number one, communication is number two, and usually communication is the first to get lost in everything. It does. It's like you say. It's something that's needed, and we hear about on the council. We hear it all the time. People want it, and it goes for a little bit and then drops off. And so, hopefully, it gets better and the citizens know exactly what's going in town.
let me give you another anecdotal thing, and it applies to the city because I was sitting there. Okay, public budgets. Everybody gets their hackles up about different things, okay? How many times has anybody, or very many people, shown up at City Hall during your budget presentations? Okay? I was a business manager for 38 years for school districts. I can count on one hand the total number of people that ever showed up to a school district budget hearing in my career. It doesn't happen. I mean, you can publish, I mean, there's advertising for all government budgets and everything else. It's just a tough sell.
All right, Dan. The city, as you know, just received the bid for Lincoln Street pavement for $7.2 million for, I'm reading this, is this 1 3/4 miles of road? This equates to $1,439 per linear foot for pavement, curb, gutter, water, and sewer lines. For another reference, this means a standard neighborhood block would cost about $820,134. Given the high price tag, how would you propose paying for future infrastructure costs?
Well, after COVID, everything has gone up 2-3 times. And the other problem with COVID is it basically destroyed most of the family operations and the operations that have survived because of the employment problems that everybody has. What's happening is all these businesses are downsizing. Where we used to have companies come out of state into state, that's not happening. We're not getting people from out of state. The big companies in state, there's very few of them, and what has happened is a lot of them have just had major problems. So what we're looking at is everything's inflated. We're not going to have them. We just don't have the money. The price tag's going up. I think big projects. I think what's going to happen, or what I think should be done, is we're going to have to get away from some of the big projects, and we're going to have to do resurfacing on the streets before they're dirt, and we're really going to have to pay attention. I don't know. I think we're along for the ride as far as the street projects, like Lincoln Street. I think you're looking at maybe doing like 2 of those every 15 years. I mean, we don't have people to bid on these jobs anymore. And we had several people look at it, and a lot of them didn't bid, so things have changed. This is not, so we may have to rethink what we're doing and go to surfacing.
Okay, wait, don't give it away yet. So it's expensive, right? And we all agree it's expensive. And you say resurfacing might have to be what we make do with.
Yes.
So no further ideas about where we might get the money to do these big projects?
Well, it depends on if we can come up with the extra financing because this Lincoln Street was a $5 million job, and it came in at 2.3 million, almost 2.4 million, or 7.4 million. And so we have to come up with the money, and if we don't get the money, then what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to use money that we have in the coffers now. And depending on what happens with the 1 cent, if the 1 cent goes away this year, it's going to totally change everything, because that's I think $1.5 million a year, whatever, that goes in the coffers for street repair. So we got to see what happens this election year. If the 1 cent stays, it's not going to be bad. If the 1 cent goes, it's going to totally change everything.
So Kirk, the final portion of that question was, given the high price tag, how would you propose paying for future infrastructure costs, Kirk?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I think planning out far enough, I think the ball is rolling right now with the funding, and I think you need to stay ahead of the curve and keep getting funding for 5 and 6 years out. The more that's done in the planning part of that, when companies know that there's a job 2 years out or 3 years out, they will start looking at it. They'll get more interest. This job was kind of unique from a timeline perspective, just because of when the money came from the state and when it got designed. It kind of got weird just because everybody had to wait for the money. You can't do anything without the funding. But now that that's in place, you can get out there. I mean, construction is funny. And I'll relate it back to school construction when I was on the school facility commission. That was what general contractors wanted to know. They wanted to know, okay, what's online for 3-4 years out, because then what they were telling the state was, give those school districts the money, get the design in place, get it shovel ready, so then in 2 years or 3 years when the funding comes in place, then they'll be able to do it. They'll know. But if the funding is the same way, whether it's through the states or the feds or however it is, now the city's in a great position to get out there ahead of the curve and start getting funding available to take that into the future.
Sure, go ahead, Dan.
To add to that, yeah, you have funding out there, but you still have to have money in your pocket. And I think I'm off the top of my head, I think we have 4 or 5 million, set away. But depending on how the funding comes in on this one, and depending on what happens with the 1 cent, we could be sitting on maybe one more project, or depending on how the prices come in, one more project or 2 more projects. And if the 1 cent fails, we would be down to nothing is what we'd be down to.
Okay, thank you. I want to leave all this financial stuff behind. Here's an audience question, and I'm not even sure I can read it exactly perfectly, so bear with me. It says, sexual orientation and gender identity are common human traits with differences. As community members who are young, older, business owners, employees, neighbors, parents, to name a few groups, who are LGBTQIA or Two-Spirit, would you take seriously concerns for well-being, thriving, and openly participating in Lander? When have you done so as a leader? Start with you, Kirk.
Well, since this is city council and not something else, I think you need to be careful. City councils, government entities, like city council, isn't designed to deal with social issues. The city council is to provide services to the people, to do stuff like that. Obviously, as my role in a school district, we had to accommodate everybody that came through the doors, no matter what. Okay, we treated them as kids. Okay, the worst thing that happened in education were the parents. Okay, the kids were fine. Didn't matter if they were gay, straight, it didn't make one bit of difference. Bullying is bullying, that was addressed. Okay, you treat people like people. And you've all read in the papers where it's come through on education, and it's really hard. And I think people make it harder than it needs to be. If you treat people like people, there are no issues. But as far as from a city council perspective, that's not a social issue city council should have to deal with.
I agree with that. I think, I mean, I have no qualms with any of that. I don't even give it a second thought, to tell you the truth. I treat people as people. I treat people as equals. I really hate to see city government getting involved into different things because it sometimes it tends to divide the community. So yeah, I think you have to be really, really careful with that. That's all I have to say.
Here's another question that, I'm gonna read you the question and then I'm gonna throw my own little spin on it for your thoughts.
Oh, just for him or me?
Well, okay, we'll start with Dan on this one. What if the county, reservation, and towns join together in big projects for bulk buying? We could all work and listen together and expand our community skills. And I would add to that, or maybe urge you to just comment on, are there any areas that you think we could be better involved with the tribes and the reservation in any kind of collaboration between the city of Lander?
I heard everything you said, get together and do.
The question was, what if the county, reservation, and towns join together in big projects for bulk buying? And I don't know exactly how that would work, but I guess I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on how the city of Lander could be more involved potentially with the tribes, which are right next door and always in our community?
No, I for sure. I think, I don't think that'd be that big of a problem. I just came from the state of Wyoming and we work with communities. They would use their, and we did the same thing with the tribes. We did the same thing with Lander, Riverton. We would, if we could get something, like say, get something for a better price, we would help them get that through the state. So the state's already doing that. They're already working that. So I think it's doable. It just takes communication.
Do you have any thoughts about any other things that could be done as a collaboration with the reservation?
I think the sky's the limit. I don't think there's any limits. I think it's a matter of getting together and working together, making a plan.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that, Kirk?
No. Entirely different populations. I've been whipsawed over that my entire career about working. One that I'll pick on Dan for a minute, we had to fight the legislature because they wanted school districts to buy fuel from YDOT. Well, we had to prove to them, and I proved to them in Lander, I could bid bulk fuel cheaper than YDOT was getting it. So what's the advantage? I mean, it's a whole different structure. When people are bidding fuel to the state of Wyoming or a school district or the city, when they're bidding asphalt, there's a heck of a difference between doing asphalt in Lander versus asphalt out on a road in the reservation. And I don't have to tell everybody the challenges of doing business on the reservation. I mean, you can have all the joint committees you want, It's just an environment. When you say the city, the county, and the reservations, they're entirely different populations. The county doesn't serve anybody in the city, and the city doesn't serve people in the county. So, I mean, there is no advantage to it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one last question before we move on to closing arguments, statements.
Hey, lawyer, it's not closing argument.
Sorry. Closing statements. Oh. But it brings it back to something you particularly spoke of earlier. Currently, the county operates our ambulance service. The Landers strategic plan priorities includes ambulance service as a third level priority. In the past, the city has made a one-time $100,000 ambulance subsidy. What ways could the city council work to support a long-term solution to ambulance service? Why don't you start?
Well, first of all, you need to have a provider. Who's providing the service? And I think just from talking to people and what I've read, I think that's where it gets a struggle. It's been interesting over the past probably 10 years to listen to the dialogues at the state level about Fremont County as the poster child for high medical costs and ambulance costs. Okay, why? I have never ever seen a good study that says, here's the problems, here's what we're struggling with. Okay, when I'm at the golf course, I don't think I'm ever at the golf course when the flight for life isn't going and coming. Okay, what's up with that? I mean, why is that the thing? I want to see what the problem, what is the struggle been in Fremont County and Lander specifically with keeping ambulance services in Lander? I don't know. I don't know that anybody's ever put that out there. They just keep throwing money at it and hope it solves itself, which is a horrible idea. I mean, all that does is just keep moving the cost up.
Dan's shaking his head. He has a thought.
The ambulance, I've been through the whole scenario, and they have a accounts receivable problem. They always have. We've had a lot of different people come in and talk before the council, and so they have problems. They need to figure that out. And I believe Lander is about has the lowest amount of ambulance calls out of the whole situation. Lander's pretty low, I believe. But I think what it comes down to, and I really have a problem with this, when did the citizens start subsidizing private business? And that's basically what we have. We have private businesses that we are helping, and I don't see a way out of it. I see us paying from here on out, and I don't know how to solve that problem. And you know, the crazy thing is, these entities, they say, oh, you know, we just need a little bit of time, you know, I tell you what, we're going to be on our feet. It's not happening. And so what happens is the citizens, you know, we just start taking one burden after another burden after another burden, and where does it end? Land is expensive anyway, but you start piling all the debt from private businesses, you know, to keep them afloat, and I just don't see it stopping, and which means that I think that one by one they're going to start piling up, and it's just more debt that we're going to have to pay. You know, while we're trying to pay outrageous grocery prices and car prices and everything else, and it's just, I think it's a bad trail to go down, and we're there. So
So you would support not subsidizing the air service of Irvington Airport?
that's not what I said. No, I've made that clear that I do.
I agree. I agree. Okay, but be careful, because you're saying you're against subsidizing the ambulance service, but in favor of subsidizing the airport, it's the same thing. I mean, tax dollar, tax money's tax money.
Hang on, I didn't say that I didn't support them. I just was telling the people that, I support, the reason why I support the airport and other things is because like with the half cent, if the half cent goes away, it's gonna come out of the general budget, which means we're gonna be double screwed here. Right now we have, the half cent and the 1 cent is a fair tax. Everybody pays that tax, not just the people that live here. So that's a fair tax. If that goes away, it's gonna come out of the city coffers, and I just remember when, what it was like, having no money at all. I can't even fix a pothole. And so, it's not that I support these, I'm just trying to figure out where we went down this road to support private business. And that's it.
Let me interrupt, because, and I know, I already said that was the last question, but there was an alternate question that sort of touches on this. It sounds like it's relevant. It says primary dollar events bring in funds from outside Lander and include events such as the Brewfest, One Shot Antelope Hunt, Jurassic Classic Bike Event, and Wyoming Outdoor Weekend and Expo, among others. Many of these events receive funding from the 1/2 cent economic development tax, which is a second priority element under the strategic plan priorities. Since 2021, about 5% of city funds supported these types of events through LIFT funding. What, if anything, is the city's role in promoting primary dollar events? Is this something we should be doing?
Yes. What I found, what's confusing to me, you talk about getting a root education, right? The one-time events, okay, the city promotes them, but the Chamber of Commerce doesn't. What's the Chamber of Commerce for? Okay, yeah, they bring in sales tax, they bring in lodging tax, they bring in lots of things those one-time events bring to Lander. But I'm a little confused as to how that fell or falls on city government. Should they be a player? Sure. There should be a partnership out there for all that. But when all the information I've got about the Chamber of Commerce, I'm scratching my head thinking, okay, the city being a partner is different than the city being a leader in that. Should they promote that stuff? Absolutely. They should welcome it, because that does bring business into town, generates business for everybody here, generates a lot of tax dollars.
Dan?
I totally agree. Those events are great. They bring in a lot of people. It's economic development. It's kind of like 4th of July. A lot of people they love it. They hate it. But I've heard for years and years and years that 4th of July brings in so much money that literally businesses in town can survive through the winter when there's no business at all. So these kind of events and especially 4th of July, and it can be a pain, but I tell you what, it brings great money into town and brings a lot of people together. They're great social events. So.
Okay, well, why don't you do your closing statement, Mr. Hahn, since you went second. Thanks. You get a minute and a couple seconds. We got time.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for the opportunity to attend this forum. I've served as a volunteer in Lander for most of my life, being a member of the Lander Fire Department, the Lander City Council, along with other organizations over the years. I am here for you citizens of Lander and look forward to serving you as a city councilman. Your confidence in me by voting for me is truly appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and listening.
I'd like to echo what Dan said, thank the League of Women Voters that kind of got beat up over the past several months unjustly. We're here, so that ought to tell you something. I have a lot of experience in what the city does, and That's what I bring to the table. I think that one of the most important things is keeping an eye on the legislature. I think that's been lost in the shuffle. I don't know that the city council, been sitting there for the past 8 months, never been a topic of discussion. And it's concerning to me because our legislature is taking away your vote for the city council. They're taking away what city councils do. And that's not right. And that's one of the things that I think I can bring to the table and have a lot of experience doing. But thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you on the road, I guess.
So on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we want to thank you for coming and the candidates for participating. We really appreciate the energy you're putting into this, and it would be appropriate to give them a round of applause. So if you would consider completing an electronic survey, which can be accessed through the QR code that's back there, we'd appreciate it. We're very interested in continuing with these forums for every election cycle. We think it's really important, and it was a little disheartening that some people opted not to participate. If you have any feedback about how we can make it better, we'd really appreciate learning that. And we hope that some of you might be able to join us on October 8th for House District 33 with Ivan Posey and Sarah Penn at Central Wyoming College Intertribal Education and Cultural Center, and October 10th for the Lander School Board in City Council Ward 1 and 2 Forum here at the Lander Library. So there's a couple more to go. We invite you to join us for some light refreshments and an opportunity to grill these people a little bit more.